So this happened around 1:30 this afternoon. No one saw it coming. No one was briefed. He literally walked in on a Jay Carney press conference. Kimberly, there's a lot here. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the fact that he's the President of the United States. He shouldn't have commented on this case to begin with. That was improper. It could have an effect on the outcome, on the jury selection, the whole process. And now he's gone ahead and done it again, repeating talking points from a lot of activists in the community that are displeased with the outcome and are really looking for essentially a public crucifixion of George Zimmerman to make their point. That is not the way to move forward in this country or improve race relations.
Geez, Greg, I was Trayvon.
What?
35 years ago, that could have been me. I have a son who may have looked like Trayvon.
Yeah.
No, that could have been me.
No, clearly President Obama should be impeached. Today was supposed to be a Zimmerman-free Friday. The A block was going to be 15 minutes of ducklings snoring. I'd cut all the tape. And now we have this. I love the way the media reacted. It was like all of a sudden there was a free Rolling Stone concert in the park.
Right.
It didn't matter what songs were playing. It's just that he was there and he was talking about it. I disagree with you, Kimberly. I think that I would like to think that the president has to address. I wish he didn't have to address this stuff.
With the comments he made?
Yeah, but unfortunately, he has to because this thing has been stagnating and festering forever. And for one, I am out of opinions. I have no opinions. I have opinion depletion. For the last month, I've had opinion diarrhea. I am opinion drained.
Take some medication.
I am done.
Hang on to that.
Opinion Viagra.
I need opinion Viagra. I do.
He took opinion Viagra. Hang in there or
But that opinion could last 4 hours, Eric.
Okay.
And if it doesn't go away, I have to go to the opinion hospital.
Consult your physician.
Call
Dr. Siegel. Paging Dr. Siegel.
Robert, that second soundbite.
I think that first of all, his first soundbite was exactly right. He made exactly the right points. And unless I'm not black and I'm not in the African American community, but I spent a lot of time around it during my life. And the fact that he is relaying to the American people exactly right why people are reacting that way. And now his point about if it could have been him.
Yeah, what about that?
I don't know about that. I mean, maybe I wouldn't have said that, but I think that the idea that somehow the African American community is not upset about this, and the only reason they're doing this is because of Al Sharpton is ridiculous.
Let's talk about this. Why he did it, Dana. I'm trying to figure out. Greg thinks he needs to address it. I'm trying to figure out why he had to go back there. Why did it have to be? The outcome may have been different if Trayvon were just white.
Terrible.
Exactly.
Like I am not very good at discerning why he says certain things. I'll tell you why I think he said it. Is that tomorrow is Saturday. They're planning to have the big protests all around the country. And Al Sharpton, they were ginning that up all week. And earlier this week, Eric Holder, the Attorney General, said at the NAACP meeting, we will take a look at this from the federal level. Then you had Trayvon Martin's parents give very compelling interviews saying we want the federal government to be able to look at this and dot the I's and cross the T's. I think that what President Obama was doing today, and then followed up by the NAACP statement, is they're trying to say, all right, there's not going to be a federal case. And we're going to have to move on.
Because they have no case.
And they're going to try to do the stand your ground laws, which I think will be a real flop.
Glad you brought that up. Take a listen. President Obama spun the debate. He turned the debate from what this really was, a self-defense trial, into this stand your ground thing that, frankly, the Al Sharptons and Jesse Jacksons want to bring up for some reason. We're going to look at the numbers in a minute. But what are you doing? You're like sleeping. I'm
not sleeping. I'm just shocked.
No, he's heavy breathing.
Here's some shocking tape. Listen.
And for those who resist that idea that we should think about something like these stand your ground laws, I just ask people to consider if Trayvon Martin was of age and armed, could he have stood his ground on that sidewalk? And do we actually think that he would have been justified in shooting Mr. Zimmerman, who had followed him in a car, because he felt threatened?
Kimberly, George Zimmerman was acquitted of murder under self-defense. What is President Obama bringing stand your ground into the debate at all?
This is the problem, okay, because there's so much misinformation. You have people talking about something that they really don't understand. They don't understand the law. They don't understand, in fact, what was applicable in this case. Stand your ground law was not used in the George Zimmerman case. It is the law in the state of Florida.
Obama on
he shouldn't
Friday
be opining
at 1:30 bring up stand your ground?
Yeah, why is he talking about it? That's not what this case is about. The case was about self-defense. It had nothing nothing to do with stand your ground law. So he's looping in this argument, confusing the public. And by the way, it's more irresponsible behavior because look at the Holder Justice Department getting involved, setting up a tip line, confiscating George Zimmerman's. Nothing's going to be enough until they get the blood of George Zimmerman.
I'll tell you why he did it. He did it because he's the most divisive president.
Get out of here.
Of presidencies.
Give me a break.
Bob, why else do you bring up stand your ground?
Because he's a black man who's been through this, which we can't relate to. And by the way,
At the
could
department
Zimmerman,
store?
if it wasn't for the stand your ground law, could Zimmerman have done what he did?
Yes.
Without the stand your ground law?
How many times do we have to do this, Bob? It's like Groundhog Day. I keep telling you that it was self-defense. When you're getting your butt whooped, you're getting your head bashed into the ground, you have a forensic pathologist testifying about the injuries that could be fatal if they continue, you're allowed to protect yourself.
Stay on the president. We've done this.
Look,
Greg points out we talked Zimmerman to death. Let's talk about president's motivations.
I think what he's trying to do is move it on beyond Zimmerman. I think Dana's exactly right. I think they're not going to run a case against him.
I think it's stirring the pot.
2 points here. The one thing about it, things would have been different if Trayvon was white. You could say that about a lot of black victims of black-on-black violence as well. So that point is always going to be irrelevant. But I will say this. You got to focus on some of the positive things that Bob was talking about, is that he did mention something that is strikingly different from the Sharptons of the world. He says it's getting better. Which flies in the face of race baiting, and that is a positive thing. The next step for him is to start talking to people other than Al Sharpton. He could have people like Shelby Steele or Thomas Sowell come and visit the White House, and I think that would be a positive thing. He also talked about, and you got to be fair to him, he talked about black males and aggression and the negative reinforcement in black culture that leads to that. He did connect it to the context of poverty, which I sometimes have an issue with because there are a lot of poor people who don't commit crimes. But I got to give him credit, or props, as we all like to use here, that he's starting to address this stuff.
Greg?
Maybe this is the beginning of a conversation.
Greg, let me ask you something. Why don't we have a conversation?
No, but why don't I thought it was out of comments.
Conversation about all the African Americans that were just killed in Chicago, or in Detroit, or in urban.
That's what he did mention.
Focusing in on George Zimmerman because his base is displeased with the outcome.
I'm talking about I just said I'm stressing one positive element of its speech. You got give him something for God's sake.
I just did. I agree with you on that aspect.
Allow me. Black on black crime, according to the FBI, in 2011, 90.7% of black victims of homicide were committed by blacks.
Exactly.
He mentioned it too. I mean, he brought up black males and aggression. What more do you want?
If Trayvon were white, the outcome would have been completely different.
And Greg I said that was irrelevant.
Fair enough. Greg points something very important out. The president ended this speech. For me, he divided and then tried to bring people back together at the end. I'm not sure what he was doing.
Why did we not put it in the?
We are. Take a listen. Here,
okay,
go.
Good.
Roll.
Things are getting better. Each successive generation seems to be making progress in changing attitudes when it comes to race. Doesn't mean we're in a post-racial society. It doesn't mean that racism is eliminated. Those of us in authority should be doing everything we can to encourage the better angels of our nature as opposed to using these episodes to heighten divisions.
Dana, you want to comment?
Seriously.
Look, it looked like he tried to leave on a positive tone.
Right, because I think, again, he's trying to signal, and I think the NAACP in the statement that they just released underscores that there will not be a federal case brought, that maybe they will be able to try to do something on stand your ground in some of these states and see if they can get a foothold there. He does have a very calming tone to some people. Other people, it drives them crazy, but for a lot of people that would turn to the president and say, help us get through this. What should we be thinking about tomorrow if we're going to these protests? And I think he gave them something to hold on to for tomorrow.
Is that what it is? This is a very good point, though. Did he do this because he knew 100 cities or more were going to have
part of it was that, but listen, this is the first black president. I think he's trying to explain to people who are not black why it is that black men feel the way they feel, because they are, every one of them.
The thing that's hard for me to believe, Bob, is that that Hispanics wouldn't feel the same way. And George Zimmerman, being half Hispanic, I would imagine that he probably was followed in a store too, or looked at differently.
He may well have.
By the way,
that's why it's hard for me to understand when you're in a position like he is. everybody has to be very disciplined. If you're going to comment on that, then why wouldn't you comment about the young mother whose child was killed right in front of her by the two black teenagers?
Right. Well,
Should she have had a gun to protect herself? Why didn't they talk about that one?
They should have. I got followed in stores just because of me.
Because you shoplift, Bob.
Can I ask you guys this? If Trayvon Martin were white, number one, would the president comment on it? And number two, would the media care?
Well, do you know the answers to that? I mean, I want to answer that pop quiz.
I have no idea.
No, the media wouldn't care, and it wouldn't have been covered.
No.
But you could actually, I mean, you could argue that President Obama has more in common with Zimmerman because they both have one white parent.
I thought you were going to say because they both smoked pot when they were...
I don't know. But here's an interesting thing here's an interesting conflict that comes out of his speech. He says that we're a better culture, that we're less prejudiced, and he's right about kids these days rarely talk about race. But you still have this horrible epidemic of black-on-black crime that's going on. So if there's no racism, or the racism is going away, yet you still have this this horrible thing going on, then what's going on? Why is this epidemic?
It's drug wars.
Drug wars. So what do you do about
Does that
that?
make
Why
it
are they
okay?
scared to address the drug war?
They should have. I agree with that. But in Chicago, you've got the Bloods and the Crips fighting over territory
Right.
to sell drugs.
Bowling.
Yeah, go.
Hey, blood in, blood out, right? That's one of the... I was a former gang prosecutor down in Compton, in Los Angeles. I've seen it. I've seen the bloodshed. But my point is, be noble. Rise above this. Don't try and stir the pot. Violence should not follow violence. And that's what I think, as a president, he should lead off with. The point isn't just the specifics of
What
this
did he
case.
stir the pot on? What was it?
My point is, I want to hear a strong statement about let's get past this. Let's make sure that we don't have that we have peaceful protests.
Do you think
I don't think
that
he's strong on
speech
it.
today,
He seems very uncomfortable to me.
Do you think that speech today did put a positive spin on race relations in America?
It educated some people that absolutely did. Absolutely. I compare that to Al Sharpton.
I'm going to say he made it worse.
I think he staunched the bleeding. And that this, as I said, predicted, I think by Tuesday there will be other news, and this one will probably not be heard from again. Can I say something about the White House press corps?
Yeah.
I cannot remember a time when in the press briefing room, the principal who came in, whoever it was, did not take at least 2 questions from the press. I don't understand why the White House press corps has allowed this to happen over and over again. I would have liked to have heard him answer a couple of questions that were from journalists in the room. I wish that they would.
Why do you think they don't do that? I'm curious.
Well, why? It's probably why they were all tweeting and emailing each other about what a major, amazing, significant moment it was that President Obama was making at 2 p.m. on a Friday because he stopped in a briefing, didn't even take their questions. I think that he would. I think President Obama is not served well by not taking more questions. I think that he probably could have, because he was so halting in his comments that he was during, as Kimberly said, it felt a little bit uncomfortable to listen to. You're waiting for him, but if he is provoked and he answers a question, he could have hit it out of the park.
Could have. That's what I'm saying.
I couldn't agree with you more about that. I think he should have taken some questions. I think the questions would have been aggressive, and I think he could have answered them fine. He was prepared.
But not even aggressive, just good questions.
Yeah, I'm for leadership. Show us you're the leader.
That was leadership. If you're missing that,
Bob, you just said to me that you thought he should have answered some questions. He's the president.
I did,
Don't
but
be afraid of answering the American people.
We got to go.